The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor, president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Ms. Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr. Thank you, and good morning, friends. We've come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after viewing our program. The family of Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Lucius Bagley III of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Frederick L. Cross of Cordele, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross, age 69, of 601 West 26th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, May 31st at her residence. The funeral service for Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross was held Sunday, June 5th, in the sanctuary of the Mount Zion First African Baptist Church in Cordele, Georgia. Dr. Dan James III, pastor. Elder Gary Williams officiated. The eulogy was delivered by her beloved sister and pastor, Pastor Rosa Sanford. The burial followed at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Survivors include her grandchildren she raised as her own, Mrs. Kendra Terry and Ms. Jessica Rush, a great-nephew whom she raised as her own, Mr. Jesse Blanks III, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her bonus children, Mrs. Sonia McKenzie, Mr. Henry Cross Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Nebby Cross, and Mrs. Yvonne West, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her goddaughter, Mrs. Trina Paul Santrunk of Cordele, Georgia. A number of bonus grandchildren, her loving and devoted sister, Pastor Rosa Sanford, and her husband, Elder Billy Sanford of Cordele, Georgia. Her beloved brother, Deacon Otis James Blanks, and his wife, Mrs. Mary Blanks of Cordele, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, to include a devoted niece, Mrs. Barbara Williams, and her husband, Elder Gary Williams of Palm Bay, Florida. Two special cousins, Mother Jessie K. Harmon of Cordele, Georgia, and Bishop Maggie Washington of Smithville, Alabama. A host of other relatives, to include three brothers-in-law, Mr. Benjamin Talbert, Mr. Matthew Sanford, and Mrs. Dorothy Miller, all of Jacksonville, Florida. A devoted friend, her devoted friends and co-workers, Mrs. Ruth Lynchfield and Miss Justine, all of Cordele, Georgia. A loving overseer, Apostle W.M. Holmes of Ideal, Georgia. Many sorrowing friends, many loving church members, survived Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross, age 69, of 601 West 26th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Lucius Bagley III, age 79, of 605 South 13th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Sunday, June 5th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Lucius Bagley III was held Saturday, June 11th at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Porter-Cashir in Cordele, Georgia. His pastor, Reverend Tiller Sims, pastor of the New Hope Baptist Church, officiated. The burial followed at the Mount Zion Cemetery in Oakville, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Lovey W. Bagley of Cordele, Georgia. His loving and devoted children, Mr. Lucius Bagley IV of Abbeville, Georgia, Mr. Christopher Bagley of Cordele, Georgia, and Ms. Lenitra Lewis of Perry, Georgia. 14 loving grandchildren, a host of great-grandchildren, his loving sisters, Ms. Cassie Alexander and Ms. Loretta Brown, both of Cordele, Georgia, and Ms. Veronica Penny Holly of Atlanta, Georgia. His caring brothers, Mr. Charles Eugene Bagley of Rochester, New York, Mr. Milton Holly of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Johnny Sutton of Atlanta, Georgia. His brothers, sisters-in-law, Ms. Mary Hall of Fitzgerald, Georgia, Dr. Sam O. Williams of Macon, Georgia, Mr. Willie Williams of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Thomas Williams of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Mr. Harold Williams of Chattanooga, Tennessee. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, a host of other relatives, and many sorrowing friends to include Deacon Dennis Harris, Deacon Ernest E. Gass, Mr. Steve Hill, Dr. Charlie Peppers, Mr. Keith McGill, and Mr. Roderick Hawkins survived. Mr. Lucius Bagley III, age 79, of 605 South 13th Street, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Frederick L. Cross, age 45, of 1216 Spring Lane East, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, May 31st at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Frederick L. Cross was held Saturday, June 11th at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Porter-Cashir in Cordele, Georgia. Reverend Joseph Atkins officiated. The burial followed at the Pleasant Hill Church Cemetery, Hatley Community, Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his beloved and caring children, Miss Adriana Cobb, Mr. Willie Pickens, and Mr. Algernon Cobb, all of Cordele, Georgia. 9 beloved grandchildren, his beloved father, Mr. J.C. Paul of Cordele, Georgia, his loving sisters, Miss Deidre Cross and her companion, Miss Nidra Felton of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Marlena Cross of Douglasville, Georgia, and Miss Tanya Cross of Lilly, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. Damian Cross of Americus, Georgia, his aunts and uncles, many cousins, a host of other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survived Mr. Frederick L. Cross, age 45, of 1216 Spring Lane East, Cordele, Georgia. Again, the family of Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Lucius Bagley III of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Frederick L. Cross of Cordele, Georgia, would like to thank all of their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams funeral directors of Cordele and Vienna were in charge of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regrets that we make the following announcements. Mrs. Maddie Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, age 81, of 125 Edgewood Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Sunday, June 5th at the Crisp Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Ms. Vera Mathis, Ms. Rosalind Johnson Porter, Mrs. Teresa Rice and her husband, Mr. Keith Wright, Ms. Sandra Johnson, Mr. Frederick Johnson, Mrs. Shonda Harris Jackson, and Mrs. Marilyn Dean and her husband, Mr. Albert Dean, all of Cordele, Georgia. 25 loving grandchildren, 55 great-grandchildren, her godchildren, Mr. Brandon Jackson of Cordele, Georgia, and Ms. Lavaris King of Vienna, Georgia. A loving sister, Mrs. Patsy Jackson, and her husband, Mr. Jim Jackson of Cordele, Georgia. Her caring brothers, Judge, retired Chief Norman F. Dexter, Sr., and his wife, Dr. Gwendolyn Dexter of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Joe Louis Dexter and his wife, Mrs. Beverly Dexter of Sumter, South Carolina, Deacon Arthur L. Parker and his wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Amos Mathis, Jr. of Valdosta, Georgia. Her godsister, Mrs. Martha A. Cross of Cordele, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, a multitude of cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends, to include her special friends, Mother Calden Wallace of Vienna, Georgia, Mother Adeline Lofton of Araby, Georgia, Mrs. Willie Mae Dexter, and Miss Julia Walker, both of Cordele, Georgia, survived. Mrs. Natty Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, age 81, of 125 Edgewood Drive, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for our beloved Mrs. Maddie Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, will be held today, Sunday, June 12th, at 12 o'clock noon at the A.S. Clark Auditorium on the campus of the M.D. Whitus Medical Institute in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, Reverend Dr. K.M. Williams, pastor of the Greater Mars Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. K. Annette Tisdall Thomas, age 72, of 209 Dykes Avenue, Rochelle, Georgia, died Tuesday, June 7th at the Crisp Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and caring husband, Mr. Willie Clarence Thomas, Jr. of Rochelle, Georgia. Her loving and devoted children, Mr. Charvis Thomas and his wife, Mrs. Tina Thomas, Miss Shelvia Thomas, Mr. Dexter Thomas and his wife, Miss Chelsea Thomas, Mr. Keon Thomas, and Miss Chandra Jackson. 9 loving grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, her beloved brothers, Mr. Jesse Tisdall, Mr. Rosby Lee Tisdall Jr., and Mr. Fred McAdoo. Her loving sisters, Mrs. Queenie Ferguson and Mrs. Doris Miller and her husband, Mr. Eddie Miller. Her aunt, Mrs. Juanita Robinson, a host of longtime loyal friends, many loving nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survived. Mrs. K. Annette Tisdall Thomas, age 72, of 209 Dykes Avenue, Rochelle, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. K. Annette Tisdall Thomas will be held today, Sunday, June 12th, at 5:30 p.m. at the Wilcox County High School Gymnasium in Rochelle, Georgia. Reverend Calvin Wells will officiate. The burial will follow at the Evergreen Church Cemetery in Rochelle, Georgia. United States Army veteran, Mr. James Cooks Jr., age 64, of 209 West 24th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, June 6th, at his residence. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Ms. Consuela Cooks of Atlanta, Georgia, Ms. Valencia Cooks of Tifton, Georgia, Mr. Jamie Cooks and his wife, Mrs. Tiffany Cooks, and Mr. Robert Clark, both of Cordele, Georgia. 16 grandchildren, his loving sisters, Miss Cynthia Johnson and Mrs. Latrell Mack Morris and her husband, Deacon Ronnie Morris, both of Cordele, Georgia. His caring brothers, Elder Alonzo Johnson and his wife, Mrs. Diane Johnson, and Pastor David Johnson Jr. and his wife, co-pastor Cynthia Johnson, all of Cordele, Georgia. His aunts and uncles, Deacon Bobby Barner, Mrs. Ruby Singleton, and Mrs. Annie Mae Felton, all of Cordele, Georgia. His nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. James Cooks Jr., age 64, of 209 West 24th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. James Cooks Jr. will be held graveside Monday, June 13th at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Reverend Isaac H. Owens will officiate. The public walk-up visitation will be held today from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr., affectionately known to all of us as Mr. M.R., age 82, of 1406 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Wednesday, June 8th, at his residence. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Derek Randolph Williams and his wife, Mrs. Connie Williams, and Ms. Luana Williams Grant and her husband, Mr. Robert Grant. His grandchildren and great-grandchildren, his beloved siblings, Dr. W. Clyde Williams, Mrs. Evelyn Robinson, Mrs. Joycelyn Lewis, Ms. Joanne Hayes, and Ms. Marianne Pickard, a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr., affectionately known as Mr. M.R., age 82, of 1406 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr. will be held Thursday, June 16th at 11 o'clock a.m. in the sanctuary of the Bethel CME Church in Cordele, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Anthony Robinson, will officiate. The burial with military honors will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be Wednesday, June 15th, from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox, age 99, of 902 Railroad Street, Americus, Georgia, died Wednesday, June 8th at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Willie Louise Rowland, Mrs. Charlene Lewis, who was her devoted caregiver, Mrs. Annie Rose Wilson, and Miss Sabrina Yvette Maddox, all of Americus, Georgia. Mr. George Maddox of Albany, Georgia, and Mr. Clyde Maddox of Riverside, California. 28 loving grandchildren, to include a devoted granddaughter, Ms. Cassandra Lewis, 58 great-grandchildren, her loving sisters, Mrs. Maddie Ruth Deriso of North Carolina and Mrs. Annie Ruth West of Miami, Florida, a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox, age 99, of 902 Railroad Street, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox will be held Friday, June 17th at 1:00 p.m. in the sanctuary of the Friendship Baptist Church in Americus, Georgia. Bishop Melvin McCluster, pastor. The burial will follow at Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be Thursday, June 16th from 1 until 5:00 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mrs. Carolyn Jackson Hicks, age 81, of 2106 7th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, June 9th at Pruitt Health Ashburn in Ashburn, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted daughter, Ms. Constance J. James of Cordele, Georgia, a beloved grandson, Mr. Rodney James of Cordele, Georgia, 7 great-grandchildren, 10 great-great-grandchildren, her niece and nephews, Ms. Anita Jackson Williams, Mr. Frederick Jackson Sr., and Mr. Scotty Jackson, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her in-laws, Mrs. Berna H. Jefferson of Atlanta, Georgia, Ms. Beatrice Henderson, and Ms. Cassie Johnson, and her husband, Mr. Roy Johnson, all of Los Angeles, California. Ms. Peggy Hicks of Sioux Sun City, California, Mr. William Hicks and Mr. Donald Hicks, both of Atlanta, Georgia, Mrs. Claranda Hicks of Cordele, Georgia, and Ms. Margaret Hicks of Atlanta, Georgia. A host of other relatives and many sorrowing friends, to include Mrs. Minnie Fletcher, Ms. Burl Patrick, Mrs. Brenda Oliver, Ms. Mary Applin, and Deacon and Mrs. Bobby James, survived Mrs. Carolyn Jackson Hicks, age 81, of 2106 7th Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Carolyn Jackson Hicks will be held Saturday, June 18th at 11:00 a.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Porter Cochere in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, Reverend W.W. Wilson, pastor of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be held on Friday, June 17th from 1 until 5:00 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr., age 43, of 125 Landline Road South, Pineview, Georgia, died Friday, June 3rd at the Taylor Regional Hospital in Hawkinsville, Georgia. Survivors include a beloved and caring son, Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Jr. of Eastman, Georgia, his beloved father, Mr. Eddie B. Burns of Pineview, Georgia, a beloved brother, Mr. Donald Coley Sr. of Pineview, Georgia, a host of other relatives and friends, to include Ms. LaDonna Emery of Hawkinsville, Georgia, Mr. Kaya Emery, Mr. Raekwon Emery of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Mr. Carlos Howard of Warner Robins, Georgia, survived Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr., age 43, of 125 Landline Road South, Pineview, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr. will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Mr. Johnny Talbert, age 77, of 713 East 27th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, June 11th at the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare in Tallahassee, Florida. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Juanita Mathis Talbert of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and devoted children, Mr. Johnny Talbert Jr. and Mr. Marcus L. Talbert of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and caring grandchildren and great-grandchildren, a beloved brother, Mr. John Talbert of Cordele, Georgia, a loving sister, Ms. Estelle Grant of Savannah, Georgia, a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorry friends survive. Mr. Johnny Talbert, age 77, of 713 East 27th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Johnny Talbert will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Mrs. Annie Lee Williams Collins, age 80, of 707 South Joe Wright Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, June 11th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Annie Lee Williams Collins will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors of Cordele and Vienna are in charge of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that concludes our funeral announcements for this morning. As always, at this time, we would like to remind you in regards to our advanced funeral planning that's available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. If you have questions or concerns regarding advanced funeral planning, we invite you to give us a call, and we'll be so happy to discuss and answer any questions that you might have. We'd also like to remind you that whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. We have a licensed insurance agent on staff, and we'll be so happy to again sit down and discuss any questions or concerns that you might have in regards to advanced funeral planning as well as whole life insurance. And now for announcements. The New Poplar Spring Baptist Church invites everyone to join them each Sunday at 9:45 a.m. for in-person or via conference call. You may call them at 253-993-3761 for worship service Wednesday at 6:30 a.m., 12 o'clock p.m., and 7 p.m. Pastor Teacher Johnny B. Dean is the pastor. Christ Chapel Unadilla Weekly Food Pantry is open every Saturday from 9 a.m. until 12 o'clock noon. Mrs. Jeanette Taylor is the pastor relief trainer. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with the Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church today. You may join them via Facebook Live beginning at 9 o'clock a.m. You may join them for Tuesday midday prayer conference at 12 o'clock noon. Thursday prayer meeting and Bible study is held at 6 o'clock p.m. The call-in number for the conference call is 229-329-7611. Mother Lucille Shazer, Church Mother, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Chairman of Deacons, Reverend Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The St. King Baptist Church extends a cordial invitation for everyone to worship with them for the Hour Power Worship service beginning at 9 o'clock a.m. Reverend Woody Burnham is the pastor. The Mount Zion First African Baptist Church conference call scheduled Sunday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Prayer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock noon. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. The call-in number is 339-209-6419. Deacon Joe Wedges is the chairman of deacons. Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. The Gethsemane Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them today, beginning at 10:30 a.m. Deacon Johnny Wilson is chairman of deacons. Reverend Cecil Strawler is the pastor. The Davis Chapel CME Church will have worship service each second and fourth Sunday, beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Face masks are required. Stuart Ruby Barrett is the chairman of stewards. Reverend Arnell Wilburn is the pastor. The New Oak Grove Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them each Sunday for Sunday school beginning at 9:15 a.m., worship service at 10 o'clock a.m. Face covering is required. Deacon Alonzo Jones is the chairman of deacons. Reverend W.W. Wilson is the pastor. The Gum Creek Missionary Baptist Association annual session of the Congress of Christian Education of the Gum Creek Association will convene with the Beulah Missionary Baptist Church of Albany, Georgia on Wednesday, June 15th at 10 o'clock a.m. Please join them for this one-day session. Dr. Kenneth M. Williams, moderator of the Gum Creek Missionary Baptist Association. The Tri-Stone Bible Study Church invites everyone to worship with them each Sunday from 10 a.m. until 11 o'clock a.m. Minister Ward is the reporter. The McAfee Grove Baptist Church of Leesburg invites everyone to worship with them family nights Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m., small class study Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m., Sunday morning worship at 9 o'clock a.m., and you may join them using the call-in number 425-436-6341. Your access code is 708058. Reverend Dr. Robert L. Morgan Sr. is the pastor. The Jerusalem Baptist Church of Ellaville, Georgia, will celebrate the church's 131st church anniversary today, beginning at 2 o'clock p.m. Pastor George Muntz and Whole Truth International Ministries Incorporated will be the special guest. Dr. Deanne Holsey is the pastor. The Fort Valley State University Christ County Head Start and Early Head Start are now accepting applications for the 2022-2023 school year. If you are interested, please visit our Head Start Center at 1110 South 12th Street or our Early Head Start located at 615 West 15th Avenue to pick up an application and to discuss items needed for registration. If you should have any questions prior to your visit, feel free to contact Ms. Keandria Towns or Ms. Laquita Jenwright for Head Start at 229-276-9880 or Ms. Shayla Askew for Early Head Start at 229-273-7452. Wilcox County Head Start is taking applications. For more information, please call Ms. Donna Jenkins, Center Manager, at 229-365-2340 or 478-922-4464. And this comes from Ms. Donna Jenkins, Center Manager. Again, as always at this time, we would also like to remind you that if you have not taken advantage of getting your vaccination for COVID-19, please consider getting your vaccination. We are fully aware that the virus is still there. We are thankful that the numbers are down, but we also know that that can change. So still let us continue to take every precaution that we can to get ourselves vaccinated. That concludes our announcements for today. And now for dedications. Our first selection this morning is dedicated in loving memory of Reverend Nathaniel Jackson Sr., who would have celebrated his birthday on June 1st. Dedication requested by his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the entire Jackson family. In loving memory of Mother Mildred Martin, who departed this life June 9th, 2019. Dedication requested by the Martin and Smith family, her grandson, Deacon Kenneth E. Smith Jr., and all the members of the Greater Gum Creek Baptist Church family. In loving memory of Mrs. Calvinia Pittman, who departed this life June 9th, 2015. Dedication requested by the Pittman and Williams family. In loving memory of Mr. Willie Lee Lawrence, who would have celebrated his birthday on June 12th. Dedication requested by Shine, Geraldine, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the entire family. In loving memory of Mrs. Justine Ford Vance, who departed this life June 13, 2015. Dedication requested by the Ford and Vance family. We'd like to take this opportunity this morning to wish a very special happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dr. Maxine Dexter, who celebrated her birthday on Tuesday, June 7th. Dedication requested by her husband, Judge Chief Norman F. Dexter Sr., her children, her grandson Noble, the entire family, and the staff and management of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. We all pause and say happy birthday to Dr. Gwendolyn Maxine Dexter. Happy birthday, and we pray that God will bless you to see many, many more. Happy birthday to Ms. Mary Trahan, who celebrated her birthday on Thursday, June 9th. Dedication requested by her entire family, as well as the members of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Baptist Church. Happy birthday to Ms. Talaya Ashley, who celebrated her birthday on June 11th. Dedication requested by the family. Happy birthday to Mr. George Leon Jones, who celebrated his birthday on Saturday, June 11th. Dedication requested by the entire Jones family. The selection this morning is being dedicated to Ms. Verdell Butts, Deacon Wayward Dempsey and family, Ms. Leslie Gaines and family, for Ms. Nadine Dempsey and family, Ms. Dorothy Williams and family, for Ms. Sandra Green and family, Mr. and Mrs. Danny Jackson and family, for Mrs. Carrie Brooks and family, Deacon Frank and Mrs. Elizabeth Brown and family, Deacon Ray and Ms. Linda Rollins and family, Ms. Valerie Carter and family, Mr. Sean Hutchins and family, for Ms. Shema Jackson and family, Mr. F.D. Lawton and family, for the entire Redding family, the Lawton family, the Wellens family, the Bryants family, the Perry family, the Relaford family, the Cantrell family, the Talbot family, the Mobley family, the Patrick family, the Oliver family. The selection this morning is also being dedicated to the Rainey family. We dedicate it to Reverend R.L. and Mrs. Velma Duncan and family, for Ms. Marnell Green Doster and family, for Ms. Willie Mae Crapp and family, for Ms. Willie Mae Leary and family, for Ms. Vivian Fullwood and family, for Mother Lenora McNeil and family, Deacon Wallace and Mrs. Patty Relaford and family, for Mother Martha Ruth Westbrook and family, for Mrs. Hazel Daniels and family, Reverend Plessy Nelson and family, Reverend and Mrs. Willie James Felton and family, Deacon and Mrs. Xavier Bryant and family, for Mother Leela Mae Smith and family, Mother Mary Doster and family, for Reverend Joseph Atkins and family, Reverend Lorinda Ray and family, Reverend and Mrs. Carl Munns Jr. and family, Reverend and Mrs. Jessie Watson family, Reverend and Mrs. Nikita Lester and family. This lecture this morning is also being dedicated to Reverend and Mrs. Nelson Maynard and family, Reverend and Mrs. Leonard Boston and family, Reverend and Mrs. Cecil Straughter and family, Dr. and Minister Dwayne Daniels and family, Reverend and Minister W.W. Wilson and family, for Mr. Warren and Mrs. Gladys Adderley and family, for Ms. Dorothy Coleman and family, for the Johnson family, Mr. Leon Walker and family, for Mr. Samuel McCluster and family, for the Thorpe family, for Ms. Murtis Evans and family, Ms. Julia May Turner and family, for Minister and Mrs. Julius Deriso and family, Ms. Mary Lee Holmes and family, Mr. Robert Brown and family, Mr. Willie B. Robinson and family, Ms. May Francis Maynard and family, Ms. Tramel Townsend and family, Mother Evelyn B. Lewis and family, Ms. Darquita Hunt and family. Our first selection this morning. Our next selection this morning is dedicated to all of our friends who are joining us by way of Facebook Live. We thank you for tuning in, sharing with us on Facebook. We dedicate our program and this next selection to all of our friends who have joined us on Facebook this morning as well. The selection is also being dedicated to Ms. Burnell Welburn and family, Mr. Roy Dawson and family, for Mrs. Annie G. Harvey and family, Mr. John Reese and family, for Mr. Contavian Addy and family. Sections being dedicated to Deacon Lonnie Clayton and family, Mrs. Ida B. Walters and family. Also this morning we dedicate the selection to Miss Maddie Mays and family, Reverend Joe L. Butts and family, Mother Grace Patrick and the entire Patrick family, Deacon George and Mrs. Josephine Lawrence and family, for Miss Beryl Patrick and family, for Mr. Judge and Mrs. Tommy Glenn and family. The selection is being dedicated to Judge Gail Sims and family, for Miss Easton May Sanders and family. Also, we dedicate the selection this morning to Mr. George and Miss Annette Felton and family, for Mrs. Ida Ruth Bryant and family, for Miss Norma Solomon and family, the Armstrong family, for Miss Esther Johnson and family, for Deacon and Mrs. Leon Spears and family, Deacon and Mrs. John Wiggins and family. Section is being dedicated to Deacon and Mrs. William O. Durham and family, for Minister and Mrs. John Holmes and family, Deacon and Mrs. Ray Rollins and family, Reverend and Mrs. Douglas Parham and family, for Mr. and Mrs. A.B. Levant and family. Also, we dedicate the selection this morning to Deacon and Mrs. Norman Fields and family, for Deacon Leroy Rogers and family, for Deacon Charles Hardeman and family, for Mother Ida Bell Patrick and the entire Patrick family, for Miss Geraldine Pickens and family, for Miss Jackie Lattimore and family. We dedicate this selection to Ms. Jacqueline Leonard and family, for the entire Paul family, for Mr. Don and Mrs. Cynthia White and family, for Mr. William and Mrs. Brenda Jones and family. The selection is also being dedicated to Deacon and Mrs. Charles Outlaw and family, for Pastor and Mrs. Johnny Dean and family, for the entire Ray family, for Minister and Mrs. Robbie Williams and family, for Mr. and Mrs. Harry Fox and family, for Elder J.C. and Mrs. Annette Clark and family, for the entire Polk family, for Minister Sammy Johnson and family, Mr. Norris and the entire Mathis family, also for Miss Dolores Lemons and family. We dedicate the selection this morning to the Mother Lucinda Ray and family, also for Ms. Rosie Colburn and family, for Mrs. Janie Miller and family, for Minister Alice Mae McKenzie and family, also for Miss Vivian McKenzie and family, for Mr. Frankie Lee Robinson and family, for the entire Smith family. Also, we dedicate this selection this morning to Mr. Artis Dawson and family, for Miss Barbie Adams and family. We dedicate this to Miss Maddie Pearl Sanders and family, for the entire Whitehead family, for Mother Willie McGill and family, for the entire Cobb family, for Mr. and Mrs. Lynn Thomas and family. Also, this selection is being dedicated to Mr. Kenneth R. Lester and family, Mr. Homer Swain and family. We dedicate to Mr. Alton Brown and family, for the Lester family, for the Robinson family, also for Mr. Steve Jackson and family. This selection is being dedicated to Deacon and Mrs. Granada Ridley and family. We dedicate the selection to Deacon and Mrs. Earl Clark Sr. We say happy birthday to Mrs. Murders Clark, who celebrated her birthday on June 8th. Happy birthday to her. For Mr. Reginald Billingsley and family, for Ms. Nettie Burnham and family, Ms. Lorraine Harrell and family, the Burke family, Deacon and Mrs. James Askew and family, the Stubbs family. Also, this selection this morning is being dedicated to Mr. and Ms. Carl Westbury and family, Ms. Carlotta Leonard and family, Dr. and Mrs. Franklin Jordan and family. It is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Mrs. Maddie Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, age 81, of 125 Edgewood Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Sunday, June 5th at the Crisp Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Maddie Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, will be held today, Sunday, June 12th, at 12 o'clock noon at the S. Clark Auditorium on the campus of the M.D. Whitus Medical Institute in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, Reverend Dr. K.M. Williams, pastor of the Greater Mars Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. K. Annette Tisdall Thomas, age 72, of 209 Dykes Avenue, Rochelle, Georgia, died Tuesday, June 7th at the Crisp Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. K. Annette Tisdall Thomas will be held today, Sunday, June 12th, at 5:30 p.m. at the Wilcox County High School Gymnasium in Rochelle, Georgia. Reverend Calvin Wells will officiate. The burial will follow at the Evergreen Church Cemetery in Rochelle, Georgia. United States Army veteran Mr. James Cooks Jr., age 64, of 209 West 24th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, June 6th at his residence. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. James Cooks Jr. will be held graveside Monday, June 13th at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Reverend Isaac H. Owens will officiate. United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr., affectionately known to all of us as Mr. M.R., age 82, of 1406 South 10th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Wednesday, June 8th at his residence. The funeral service for United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr., affectionately known as Mr. M.R., will be held Thursday, June 16th at 11 o'clock a.m. in the sanctuary of the Bethel CME Church in Cordele, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Anthony Robinson, will officiate. The burial with military honors will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be Wednesday, June 15th from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox, age 99, of 902 Railroad Street, Americus, Georgia, died Wednesday, June 8th at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox will be held Friday, June 17th at 1 o'clock p.m. in the sanctuary of the Friendship Baptist Church in Americus, Georgia. Bishop Melvin McCluster, pastor. The burial will follow at Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be Thursday, June 16th from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Carolyn Jackson Hicks, age 81, of 2106 7th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, June 9th at Pruitt Health Ashburn in Ashburn, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Carolyn Jackson Hicks will be held Saturday, June 18th at 11 o'clock a.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Port-au-Cachere in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, Reverend W.W. Wilson, pastor of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up viewing will be held Friday, June 17th from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr., age 43, of 125 Landline Road South, Pineview, Georgia, died Friday, June 3rd at the Taylor Regional Hospital in Hawkinsville, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr. will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Mr. Johnny Talbert, age 77, of 713 East 27th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, June 11th at the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare in Tallahassee, Florida. The funeral service for Mr. Johnny Talbert will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Mrs. Annie Lee Williams Collins, age 80, of 707 South Joe Wright Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, June 11th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Annie Lee Williams Collins will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors of Cordele and Vienna will be in charge of these arrangements during this week. Our final section this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Mrs. Elnora Blanks Cross of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Lucius Bagley III of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Frederick L. Cross of Cordele, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Mrs. Maddie Mae Mathis Johnson, better known as Sister Girl of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mrs. K. Annette Tisdale Thomas of Rochelle, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. James Cooks Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Morris Randolph Williams Jr., better known as Mr. M.R. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mother Willie Faye Thomas Maddox of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mother Carolyn Jackson Hicks of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Charles Lance Thornton Sr. of Pineview, Georgia. The family of Mr. Johnny Talbert of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Annie Lee Williams Collins of Cordele, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to all of our sick and shut-ins, to all of our patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, rehabilitation centers, to our ministers, their spouses and family, to our retired educators, to the men and women serving in the armed forces both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program each and every Sunday morning. It is a pleasure for us to bring our program to you. Our program this morning in its entirety is dedicated in loving memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. We dedicate our program this morning to our president, CEO, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, his wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, and their entire family this morning as we continue to lift them in prayer during this their time of bereavement. We pray that God will strengthen them as they go throughout this time. And to each of you who have tuned in this Sunday morning, we thank you again for tuning in. Until next Sunday morning, God bless.